Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Regulation by enforcement is a practice all too common with this administration. This is particularly the case at the SEC and Chair Gary Gensler's approach towards our capital markets and financial services industry, but especially with our emerging digital assets community. My amendment seeks to put an end to Chair Gensler's pattern of regulatory abuse, a pattern that is crushing American innovation and capital formation without undermining our ability to go after criminals and fraudsters. Specifically, my amendment prohibits the SEC from using funds for enforcement activities related to digital asset transactions until Congress passes legislation that gives the SEC jurisdiction over this asset class. This will keep Chair Gensler, who has proven himself to be ineffective and incompetent, in check while Congress continues working to give this industry a chance to grow and develop right here in the United States. Let's just look at the facts. Under Gensler's leadership, the SEC has pursued dozens of enforcement actions against the digital asset industry, despite never finalizing a single rule or regulation for the industry to follow. Chair Gensler refuses to provide the marketplace with clear criteria for digital assets that he would consider to be a security.
Emmer, who serves as the whip for the House Majority, has been extremely vocal about the fact that he disagrees with the material that Gensler has produced. On many times, he has made the claim that Gensler is unable to exert control over the digital business and that his strategy, which is to stifle innovation, is ineffective. When asked about the new bill, Emmer responded that the Stabilization Act will only assist the SEC in outlining its objectives in the correct order. He added that this response was in response to a question regarding the new legislation. In his further explanation, he noted that the primary focus of the agency ought to be on the safety of investors rather than on massaging the ego of its chair. In other words, the agency's chair should not be the primary concern. The chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler, is coming under fire from every possible direction. If this information is any indication, it appears that the concerns around the possibility of him losing his job that were highlighted by Emmer and Davidson in the proposed amendment reflect the perspective of a large number of people. For instance, many working in the cryptocurrency industry have voiced quite similar thoughts. Gensler's most recent actions demonstrate his ongoing disrespect for the interests and investors of American citizens and businesses. The Securities and Exchange Commission has developed into a tool for government luddites who believe that the dominance of the U.S. dollar is in threat under Gensler's leadership. However, the very weaponization of the SEC poses a threat to the continued dominance of the United States in the economic sphere. The concept of digital assets is here to stay, and the United States of America may either take the lead in the technological transformation that the financial markets will eventually need to adopt or follow in its footsteps. The SEC under Gensler has come to the conclusion that it is in the company's best interest to export our most talented workers while simultaneously ignoring technological progress and limiting innovation. Because of Gensler, the United States is ceding control of the future financial markets to governments in other parts of the world that are more forward-thinking and conscientious. These countries include those in the Middle East and Europe, as well as those that the United States considers to be unfriendly powers. Not only the owners of businesses and the interests of the country are hurt by this, but everyone else as well. Gensler has shown time and time again that the protection of investors, which is one of the SEC's primary responsibilities, is not even close to being at the top of his list of priorities. Tom Emmer, who is likewise supportive of cryptocurrency, was Davidson's helper during the process of developing the legislation. Davidson is receptive to cryptocurrencies. Warren Davidson, who is an advocate for cryptocurrencies, is the one who spearheaded the effort to draft a brand new piece of legislation and gave it the name SEC Stabilization Act. According to Davidson, the aim of the measure is to restructure the Securities and Exchange Commission and oust the autocratic chairman, Gary Gensler, from his role as chairman. His announcement can be found on Twitter as follows: "The SEC Stabilization Act, which I introduced today, is an effort to reorganize the SEC and to remove Gary Gensler from his position." Davidson disclosed in a separate statement that the overarching objective of the law is to protect the financial markets in the United States. This information was provided by the bill. On the other hand, he stated that there is only one way to achieve this objective, and that is to put an end to the persistent misuse of authority that has been going on within the company. Tom Emmer is the name of the other congressman who is a supporter of cryptocurrencies, and he helped Davidson draft the legislation. It is crucial to note that Davidson had assistance in drafting the legislation from another congressman who is also favorable of cryptocurrencies. You might remember that not too long ago, Coinbase made the statement that the SEC is not interested in setting clear guidelines for digital assets. The only thing the SEC was interested in doing, according to the exchange, was carrying out enforcement actions. Binance is a good illustration of this concept. In its attack on the American digital asset market, the United States on Thursday leveled the accusation that the agency run by Gensler was engaging in fear tactics, which was one of those strategies. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of it all was the criticism that Gensler received from within his own agency. A member of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Hester Pierce, is opposing the Commission's endeavor to regulate cryptocurrency by making use of regulations that are already in existence for the financial industry. According to Fox News, Davidson and Amer are plotting to have Gensler removed from his position as mayor in order to gain power for themselves. In spite of this, in addition to this, their legislation would try to reform the agency by altering the power dynamic between the head of the SEC and the commissioners. This would be done in an attempt to reorganize the agency. The agency would receive a sixth commissioner, and it would be ensured that no one political party would have a majority on the commission. This would be done in conjunction with the appointment of the sixth commissioner. As a further consequence of the measure, an opening will be created for the position of executive director. There are very few people in the Bitcoin sector in the United States who are as reviled as Gary Gensler has become over the past week. These days, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, also known as the SEC, is widely regarded as the most prominent public opponent of cryptocurrencies. Since Sam Bankman-Fried's startling fall from favor, nobody has been able to incite as much animosity in the sectors of the digital asset world that are less heavily controlled as he did. In addition, there is a deep-seated hostility beneath the surface of even the most carefully stated remarks made by crypto firms. David Sachs has leveled the accusation that Gensler has beyond the boundaries of his power. This week, several notable people have spoken out against Gensler, and one of them is David Sachs. The internet entrepreneur, who is most known for his work on Papermavia, shared some of his strong sentiments regarding the chairman of the SEC on a recent episode of the All In podcast. Sachs claimed that there are no consumer protection issues highlighted by the SEC's recent legal actions against Coinbase. This is in contrast to the situation in which the Commission would have pursued FTX sooner. He contends that what Gensler and the SEC are essentially stating is that it is against the law to run a cryptocurrency exchange in the United States because Coinbase has essentially done everything that needs to be done correctly. He continued by stating that he believed only Congress had the ability to implement such broad prohibitions because it was their constitutional responsibility. Gary Gensler is acting much beyond the scope of his power by essentially restricting the ability of citizens of the United States of America to engage in commercial activity. Sachs emphasized that it is not the place of the chairman of the SEC to announce that Americans should not possess Bitcoin and that this is not his responsibility. Warren and Gensler have formed an alliance to wipe out the United States cryptocurrency industry. Sachs' view, which usually corresponds with critiques from the industry, is that the SEC's recent actions have a very real prospect of significantly restricting the ability of individuals in the United States to purchase cryptocurrencies. His later remarks, on the other hand, have a tone that is more suspiciously conspiratorial. According to this individual, there are reports circulating that Gensler is affiliated with Elizabeth Warren, and that if he is successful in eradicating Bitcoin in the United States, he may nominate him to the position of Treasury Secretary. There is no evidence to suggest that Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler are conspiring behind closed doors to bring down the American cryptocurrency market, nor is there any indication that the two are engaging in a backroom deal. Sachs comments, the member of Congress who identifies with the Democratic Party has frequently portrayed herself as a crypto hawk. In addition, she has consistently advocated for more exchange supervision as well as improved safeguards for common investors. In the past, she has been a strong supporter of legislation that would provide the SEC with increased authority to regulate the cryptocurrency business. In addition, Warren introduced legislation in March that would prohibit Bitcoin mixers and limit the use of automated teller machines that deal in cryptocurrency.